Okay, welcome to the Spotlight with Shaun O'Rourke. I'm back this week with Stu. We talk about the big breaking news, Michael Keaton back as Batman for Flashpoint with the new Flash film. We talk about Joel Schumacher, Sir Ian Holm. We've got Cobra Kai, J.K. Simmons and Marvel. We've got Jamie Foxx as Mike Tyson. We talk Star Wars, Oscar Isaac. We talk Mandalorian. We talk Dave Filoni. We talk Jon Favreau, Kathleen Kennedy. We have a lot of fun on this episode, so let's get right to it. Okay, so we are back, and but I wanted to do a shout out to my mom real quick because she got me this awesome shirt for my first Father's Day. If you can see it, do you see what it says?
I cannot.
It's the Darth Vader. I am your father.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a good quote. So thanks, Mom. It was a great gift. Dude, the news dropped. Michael Keaton in it's really weird. In negotiations to be back as Batman in the DC Flash movie. So obviously the Flashpoint is what they're going for.
Right.
We've all kind of talked about that in the past. That his whole movie was always going to be Flashpoint, which is weird because you're starting off at the end, right?
Yeah.
So you got all this stuff you're not going to cover of who, he is, the Flash, and then you're just going right to like the climax of his storytelling.
Well, yeah, Flashpoint, like I feel like it's so weird to do that for the first jump because you kind of got to know a little, like you need to world build a little bit to get to that. And realize why that's such a big deal, why he's doing that. And like, because no one will know who the Reverse Flash is, because Reverse Flash was the main point. Like, he was the main guy who orchestrated, well, not even really. Barry is kind of the one that did it all, and he just took advantage of it, and he loved rubbing that in his face in the end when he revealed to him, like, you did this, I didn't, kind of thing. So, like, there's a lot of history there, and I don't know how you just can start a movie without really getting, like, having an audience. Like, that would have been a great third film to do, like the last film of a trilogy, if you even do that, at this point anymore. But like where you'd established everyone a little bit, and got to know them. And I mean, I hope they recast Ezra Miller, or they're using this.
No, they've already said Ezra Miller's their guy. Even after, he choke slams some chick drunk, he's still their guy, which it's, I'd rather them go with somebody else. But look, Michael Keaton takes the movie up a notch.
Yeah.
And then they're reporting that he's going to be like the Nick Fury of the DC cinematic expanded universe, the multiverse, where he'll be bouncing around to all the different characters in some capacity, which is weird because, like, how would Batman show up on Earth 147, the Michael Keaton there, and then he needs to travel to Earth 89 to talk to somebody else, but this allows them to even bring back, Henry Cavill in his own Superman in his own timeline, and he doesn't have to worry about all the stuff that happened prior. So maybe he can interact with General Zod again, or maybe he can interact with Doomsday. But the bottom line is Michael Keaton's coming back. Now it's funny, I checked his Instagram this morning, and he's camping somewhere. He's in a what are the silver campers? The Airstreams?
Airstreams,
He's in a really nice custom Airstream out in the middle of nowhere, and he posted a photo of him out camping. So here's this guy. The world is going nuts because Batman is back. And does that mean when this Flash jumps to that Flashpoint, goes to that multiverse, and goes over there, is he in Tim Burton's Gotham?
Yeah,
with the archaic look and all that stuff.
So I'm sure it'll be like, if you even see that, I mean, it might just be he arrives at Wayne Manor and you see whatever, house they used for the exterior of Wayne Manor in the Tim Burton movies. And that's probably how they'll do it. Cause I don't really know. It's cause it won't really be Flashpoint. I don't know. It's because
and they're still saying that Dean,
the guy for Negan,
what's his name
from
Hillary Burton's husband.
Yeah.
He's still supposed to play Thomas Wayne, so he may be in the Flashpoint movie as well. It's really, I mean, I guess we just have to wait and see it play out. But I'm interested in seeing him come back, and everybody was like, whoa, Michael Keaton's 68. And I'm like, well, Harrison Ford is going to be 78 doing Indiana Jones. And like, you can't sell the guy out like that. Plus, with Batman Beyond.
Right.
But I feel like what they're also establishing is, what the rumors are reporting is that Batgirl will be the one that has already taken up the mantle, and Michael Keaton is grooming her and that's kind of like, that just takes the Batman Beyond thing and throws it out the window. So I guess they're not going to go in that direction, and they're just going to have a female Batgirl, Batwoman. What are they going to, I don't know what they're going to call
Probably
her.
Batgirl, because
Batgirl.
CW's kind of doing Batwoman and
right.
Yeah, so I think it would be Batgirl. I think that would make a lot of sense. And I do like the idea of him coming in and being like a Nick Fury, because that is really kind of awesome. And like a really smart play by DC to do that, because there's a lot of people like our age that grew up in the, Tim Burton Batmans, and we all, they're kind of have a special place in your heart. And then, Michael Keaton is just, that's Batman, for a lot of people. So that was kind of cool seeing, him be Batman, hearing that he'll come back as Batman. So I think that's going to be awesome, because it does seem like they're going to take a little bit of the Batman Beyond like mentor role and then do it with Batgirl instead. So I think that'll be cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I still wish they would have gone with, Joseph Gordon-Levitt and just carried on the Nolan films. It just makes no sense that they just left that the way they left it. I don't know.
He teed him up. He teed him up so perfectly with that, too.
He did. He did. He teed him up. Everything was perfect. And you could have had Superman within that world and all those guys within that world. It could have just happened organically. But we're never going to get another Christian Bale, Michael Keaton, the perfect trilogy as far as I'm concerned. But speaking of Batman, speaking of Michael Keaton, and speaking of just the Batman franchise as a whole, Joel Schumacher passed away.
Yeah.
Cancer. Which sucks. I always he directed Batman Forever, and it's frustrating because you see the headlines, and the headlines are like, Batman director dead. Really? Clickbait.
Right,
Joel Schumacher dead. I hate when they report stuff like that, because I always feel like the family have to read those headlines, and they always seem so harsh, especially when someone dies of cancer. And Joel Schumacher wasn't just the Batman director. Like it was just like every headline was Batman director dead, Batman this, Batman that. And it's like, he directed those two films, but he goes all the way back to doing The Lost Boys and St. Elmo's Fire. And like, the guy has done a ton of work. And you know what's interesting? I found on top of all the movies that he did, whether it be Flatliners, he did DC Cab, which I actually didn't know that. And I liked DC Cab when I was a kid.
Yeah, I remember DC
Had
Cab.
no idea he directed that one. And then, The Incredible Shrinking Woman and so on. But I found it interesting. Tigerland. Oh my God. Have you seen Tigerland? That's the Marine Corps movie.
Yeah.
With Colin Farrell.
Well, I'm trying to think if I was in the Army when that came out. I don't know if I dug that one as much, but.
Well, that was a really, really, really good film, Tigerland. But he made time periodically to do short films.
Yeah.
In between his project. And I thought, and even up until, he was 80 years old when he passed away, but even up until, just a few years ago, he was knocking out short films. And, it looks like his last directing credits were a couple episodes of House of Cards. But really sad, just in general, but he had a fantastic, body of work that went with him. And, they always say, the celebrities die in threes. And then, Sir Ian Holm passed away, actor. Of course, I knew him first from Alien,
right.
But a lot of people know him from the Lord of the Rings trilogies and all the other movies. The guy's been in over 150 projects. The guy's he's been knocking out movies and television shows since since 1957.
Because he was in Fifth Element, right? Wasn't he the guy?
Yeah.
And I forgotten he was in Alien until I saw everyone kind of posting pictures, and I was like, geez, this guy really was in everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, The Aviator,
Yeah.
Garden State. I mean, he would do small films and big films. Ratatouille, he did voiceover work and so on and so on. And he recently did voiceover work in 2014 for the Alien Isolation video game. So he actually came back to play
That's
Ash.
cool.
And that's bitching, man, to do it. I think the video game voiceover stuff is fantastic that these actors are able to live on in video games. But just a sad week in general to see so many people passing. Yeah, it's just tough.
Yeah.
We were talking about the Batman, the DC Cinematic Universe. What did you think? It's really weird. Like, I think Zack Snyder, released this teaser it's like a teaser of it before teaser. I think we're going to get between now and 2021, we're going to get like 50 teasers for Justice League. And it's weird because he put out a picture of Darkseid, whatever.
Yeah.
And said, this is what it'll look like. But you really had to kind of click in and zoom. And by the time you zoomed in far enough, he was blurry. So you really didn't get a good look at him. So it was like, oh, okay. And then he releases practically the same thing with just, Gal Gadot, however you want to say it, Gadot, just looking at a thing on a wall.
Yeah.
And then they show that same thing where, Darkseid's there with some sort of battle axe or sword and a loincloth, I don't know why you would wear those clothes coming out of a spaceship. I mean, it's like, like, why? I mean, at least Thanos had, what looked like real mechanical body armor type suits versus, you're a loincloth, really? Like, why are you doing that?
All the stuff I saw, like Darkseid wears armor, like some sort of, he's not wearing a robe or anything weird like that. So yeah, that'll be, I'm sure that's just kind of like previs stuff or early previs stuff he had on his cut. And they were like, hey, this is good enough for us to do a low, like a social media video or whatever. So yeah.
Yeah. But I think we're going to see lots of those things. But at the same point, I'm kind of like, I really don't want to see anything anymore. Now that we know it's coming, let's just let it breathe and we'll see what happens in 2021 and we'll watch the series. But between now and 2021, I feel like between everybody sheltered in with COVID-19 and nothing really being shot and all this, I feel like they're just going to be like, let's just keep giving them a little nugget. I mean, you got to remember, they're trying to get people to subscribe to HBO Max too, as well.
Yeah, I'm not.
So what they really need to do is they need to do like Disney did with the gallery for the Mandalorian, is do something like that.
Yeah.
About this whole process to build up to it. Do the reverse instead of showing us all the stuff. Show us like a lot of behind the scenes and really do an episode of something where Zack Snyder talks about this entire crazy process.
That would be amazing if they did something like the gallery of how they brought it back from the dead and then the whole process through. You could do a limited series of that and people would tune in. I mean, I imagine the gallery is doing pretty good for Disney Plus because I watch it every week, or I guess it's over now, but yeah, that would be a smart idea for them.
Yeah, we one of the things somebody was had said online that I had noticed on Twitter was, with Zack Snyder's version of this thing now you don't have Danny Elfman. He came in, and took over for that other guy who who does all the scores for Zack Snyder, and he had dropped little nuggets of like his original Batman score from 1989, and he threw in the John Williams score in one scene.
Yeah.
Right. And so now we're probably not going to get that. But then you see Michael Keaton might be returning as Batman. Now we may get Danny Elfman bringing back those cues again. So it's like,
yeah, it's going to be weird because I appreciated those moments, but I'm willing to definitely let them go if the movie is better,
Oh, if Zack Snyder's cut is better, right? The series, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because I don't see Zack Snyder, because tonally none of that music fits with what he's trying to do. I mean, I still think he's a fool for not using the John Williams score of Superman, or just making a, I'd hate to say modernization because it's almost perfect. Like, dude, if John Williams does your score and everyone that hears it knows immediately who that is, you're a
use
fool
the score
for not using it. Like, that
if
doesn't
you
want to
put your own twist on it, like when they did the movie Jaws: The Revenge, and
Right.
I know it's so odd to bring that up, but they used beats from John Williams's score, but put their own twist on it. So instead of it being full orchestra, it was piano. Right, so it wasn't a cello, boom, 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 boom. It was dun, 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 and you could hear the difference in it.
Right,
and so you could take John Williams's score and do things with it. And you look at what they're doing. I hate to always bring up the Mandalorian or to bring up the Star Wars video games, but they're all done by different composers now.
right.
But they all feel like John Williams music. Right? Because they're being loyal to that orchestra, to that feel. And yeah. So I don't know, but I like the original Danny Elfman score, but I also like the Dark Knight trilogy's music, and you could take the Dark Knight trilogy's music and put it into the 1989 Batman. It would be just fine. And I feel like vice versa. I think you could flip them.
For me, like the Danny Elfman Batman was fun, back then, but those are very different movies. Those are very different, very campy movies. For me, the Nolan scores were the best Batman scores. Like, I forget, it was The Dark Knight, when I watched the behind the scenes of that, and when that scene where Joker's hanging upside down and he's just waiting for them to blow up the bar or the ferries out in the thing, and they were talking about the duality of their music, where Joker's has that really chaotic, off-putting sound, and then like you see in that scene where it starts off with the Joker's theme is really loud, and as the Joker starts to realize Batman was right, Batman's theme is slowly building and takes over his. So not only visually are you seeing him beat him, but musically he's beating
him.
And
wow,
I was like, they were just so amazing. Like, so I don't understand why you wouldn't go for that score that was established. I mean, because that was sort of like the John Williams score for Star Wars or Superman. Like, with what they did with the Nolan's Batmans, that's some good stuff, man. Like,
but again, that's Christopher Nolan, man. He hires the right people. Oh, but let's take the Joker test. All right. So here's the deal.
Okay.
We've had conversations before in the past about villains and their impact on society, right?
Right.
And what I mean by that is like in your brains. Okay. So we've talked about, like, in all the Die Hard films, the main villain in the first Die Hard film is
God.
not
Hans
the actor,
Gruber.
Hans Gruber.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Okay. Can name any of the bad guys from all the other Die Hard films.
I can't.
That's my point, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to do the Joker test with you right now. Okay. Because somebody was like ranking all the Batman Joker, or all the Jokers, all the cinematic Jokers.
Yeah.
Okay. Give me, from 1989's Batman, give me some Joker lines from 1989's Batman.
What is it?
This is 1989, so it's a long time ago.
He's got tons of them. I can't.
That's my point, right?
Like, there's there a bat in my belfry or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
right?
no, he's got...
or...
Where does he get those wonderful toys?
Exactly. Okay, keep going.
Yeah.
Keep going. They're all coming back now.
Yeah. Well, he was set up with really corny one-liners.
No.
I'm trying to think of them all.
We're playing a game here,
All right.
okay?
All
Okay.
right.
If
That's
you gotta go with a
Go
smile.
with a smile.
Right?
Yeah.
There was all these things that make Jack Nicholson's character of the Joker memorable. You could name all the lines, just like you said. You could truly be said that I have a bat in my belfry, like,
Yeah.
and all these lines. Ever dance with the devil by the pale moonlight?
Pale Moonlight. Yeah.
Right. I always ask that of all my prey.
Yeah.
Right. All the lines. Joker. Got it.
Right.
Got it. We're playing along. Give me Heath Ledger. Give me some lines right now.
Oh, like who wants to see a magic trick? Like, dude, come on. Like,
Okay, give me another one.
How do I get these scars? Or he's like,
Okay, give me another one.
Oh God. I'm trying
Here
to think.
we go.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Here
Right?
we go. Yeah.
Okay. Why so serious?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I can't
Okay.
believe I'm
Okay.
spacing all these.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Jared Leto, go.
Nothing. I got nothing. I can't
Joaquin
even.
Phoenix, go.
What was he said? All I see are all I have are bad thoughts. Like I said something like that, but I can't. It's not a great one. You would. Yeah.
That's my point.
No. Yeah.
That is exactly where I'm going when I talk about if you could go through all the new Star Wars films, the new trilogy.
Right.
Nothing. No.
Yeah.
These memorable lines. You can go through the original trilogy, and you got "I am your father." You could just go
Right.
on and on and on and on and on. Memorable lines. And it's not that the movies have been watched for the last 40 years and these other ones haven't been. There's nothing in the new movies that make you go, oh, I'm going to say that. That's a catchphrase.
Yeah.
Nothing. And so when it comes to the Jokers, that's why I always feel like the Heath Ledger and Jack Nicholson will always be the best Jokers. But it's also the quality of the scripts, the quality of the lines. They knew that they would be iconic. Jared Leto tried to do something with what he had. There wasn't a lot shot with him. He probably couldn't have had.
Right.
And and then Joaquin Phoenix, I mean, that one line, like if you didn't say it, I wouldn't have remembered it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. It's not something I would quote to people if I was trying to talk about a movie. But
the greatest movies of all time you can quote: Raiders of the Lost Ark, snakes. Why did it have to be snakes? Like these are things that people say in their regular Jaws. You're going to need a bigger boat, or when you're at work
Right.
and you've got an insurmountable, task. Someone's going to be like, "Oh, I'm going to need a bigger boat." But the lines from a lot of the newer films, whether it's and can't figure out, same thing with Die Hard, Hans Gruber, all the lines, ho, 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 everything,
Yeah.
yippee-ki-yay, mother. The films today just lack this putting their footprint on the lexicon of cinema.
Well, I also think, to be fair, I do think the way movies were written, like the way Batman, the Tim Burton Batmans were written, were very much like a comic book. Like the Joker's lines all feel like they came from a comic book, whereas in the Nolan and the more updated Batmans, they don't feel like they're a comic book. They feel like you're watching, like with the Nolans, it's like an action drama essentially. It's not. I wouldn't even. Like they're kind of comic book movies, but I would say they're action adventures.
Well,
first.
let's just look at The Dark Knight. If the Joker didn't have Joker makeup on and just had scarred face, and Batman didn't have a costume, it's basically a cop story.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. It's
that's
cops
what I mean.
chasing a bad guy.
Where Tim Burton really embraced the fantasticalness of Batman,
Sure.
where everything never, like, at no point did that movie feel realistic whatsoever. It felt like you were watching a very stylized live action cartoon in a way, So,
Totally.
So I do think, like, whereas the Nolan and even the new Joker is a very serious movie. So it would make sense when you write dialogue, you're not really writing for one-liners. And I feel like that was sort of the 80s thing. It was
but see, I don't see any of Heath Ledger's lines being one-liners. They became one-liners because people latched on to the dialogue. Why
I agree with
so
that.
serious? That wasn't supposed to be
Well, also,
a
I think
one-liner.
the actors and their charisma. Because Jack Nicholson, I mean, that guy, you can pretty much put him in anything, and he's just got, even if he's a decrepit old man, he still has a shit ton of charisma.
Yeah, but
that
then you go back, you go to RoboCop, and you look at the guy
Clarence
who played
Boddicker.
Clarence Boddicker.
But he had
you know,
charisma. Like, dude, he had some of the great, just some
we'll
of his
give the man
lines.
a hand.
Yeah. I mean, it was just what made him, like, for me, stand out. He was so vicious, but funny. Like, he just had really funny line, like walking in, bitches leave, just like,
Yeah.
but
But I still feel a lot of that has to do with the writing and the directing. And you had
I agree.
Paul Verhoeven. You had really solid directors directing these films. And my only thing is it to me, like when it comes to the Joker, if you remember the dialogue and you remember the lines, that means something. If you didn't, it doesn't mean anything. Now, J.K. Simmons, I'm jumping right now. He just recorded another cameo for another Marvel film.
Right.
As J. Jonah Jameson.
Probably Venom.
But he also played Commissioner Gordon in the Snyderverse. Or did you remember that?
No, I completely forgot.
That's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. Not memorable at all.
Yeah,
not
that's
really
right.
in the movie.
Because that's how Justice League started, with Batman chasing a parademon, and he met him on the roof.
He met him on the rooftop and all that stuff. Yeah,
I completely forgot he was in it.
So it's nice to see these guys that they can jump back and forth, but also that goes to Michael Keaton because he plays in
Vulture.
Spider-Man. He was the Vulture.
Yeah.
And you would assume they're going to bring him back because in the Morbius trailer, he was at the end of the Morbius trailer.
Right.
Michael Keaton. So obviously he can jump from comic book franchise to comic book franchise. And now you see Christian Bale's playing a villain in the new Thor film.
Yeah.
So he's jumped away from DC and now it's interesting. That's all I have to say is to see these guys jump back and forth, but then be able to reinvent themselves. And, when you look at Chris Evans, when he played Torch and then jumped over to Captain America, I mean, I didn't really think that was going to work, but it did. And
Big
that was
time.
all within Marvel, the Marvel universe, which is weird. Let's talk about Jamie Foxx is now going to be doing a biopic on Mike Tyson.
Yeah, I've heard about that for a while.
Yeah, but it looks like it's really starting to get some steam. Now, I was looking at, and obviously, when you look at all these movies where these actors play real life people, they can put the special effect makeup on them now and really make them look with prosthetics like the person. But Jamie Foxx actually kind of favors and looks like Mike Tyson.
Oh yeah.
And obviously because he did Ray Charles, he's got the really, really good acting chops to pull off a really heavy, how deep are they going to go with this biopic with Mike Tyson? And then is he going to be playing the older Mike Tyson or the 20-year-old Olympic gold winner Mike Tyson in boxing? Like, obviously they're not going to go back that far. They're going to go and cover a certain chapter of Mike Tyson's life in order to do a biopic, unless they do de-aging. And I just don't see them doing that because Jamie Foxx would have to put on a lot of solid muscle in order to play Mike Tyson.
Well, he's already, I saw a picture of him. Jamie Foxx is a built dude, and he can bulk up.
He's always
when he
been in
wants
good
to.
shape.
Yeah. And what's funny about it to me is because I remember his, one of his first comedy specials, it was all about Mike Tyson and how Mike Tyson was like this pit bull, because he would make fun of him on In Living Color, doing his impression's gold. And
his impression is gold. And but see here, that's the fine line you walk.
Right.
When you do this movie, and especially when you use Jamie Foxx, because it could come across as a parody, and he's got to make sure he dials that in perfectly.
They talked about it on Joe Rogan, actually, when Tyson was on with Joe Rogan. They did talk about, that, and he did impressions of you. And Tyson is, I really dig this Mike Tyson, because he's just such this, zen, mellow guy now who's very reflective.
Although
But now
he's been
he's starting to train
training again. He's getting like a
Dude,
beast.
I mean, he's still like at his age is still the scariest dude in the room. Like,
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah.
with I could easily see him making some sort of a comeback in a weird way because he's just ferocious. Like even
Well,
when
he's
you
gonna
watch
do
him
some. He's
training,
gonna do some. He's gonna do some charity fighting,
yeah,
but it's charity. I don't know how hard they're gonna. And one of the things that I pointed out was he's ripped up, like
yeah,
because he's gone vegan. I think he's gone
yeah,
like
yeah.
no meat, and he's ripped up. But I noticed his legs are really skinny, tiny, no muscle in his calves like he had when he really fought. And believe it or not, your legs are really what dictate like how good of a boxer you are. It's not just now
Yeah.
we know he could come in 30 seconds and knock somebody out like he
I mean,
he did.
all I need is one good punch.
This
And
is
you're done.
true, but I'm wondering about Jamie Foxx. Like, is it going to come across as a parody? It's just,
I don't think so.
Yeah,
I mean,
he did a dead on impression of, Ray Charles.
yeah. I mean,
And so we know he's got the acting, the dramatic, and the comedy.
yeah.
We know. I mean, he's the full package, Jamie Foxx.
Jamie Foxx can definitely do a serious Mike Tyson movie. And I think when Jamie Foxx was on Joe Rogan, he was talking about it too, and he was saying how serious he was taking it. And so I think it'll be probably like a Ray kind of thing. It'll be very serious. And Jamie Foxx still looks young. Like he could play 30s still. I mean, because he really doesn't look
Well, and
like,
with the right makeup and lighting,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
could, yeah.
Well, and then,
when
you've seen with the Marvel films how they de-age people. Like, I'm sure they could do a scene, a flashback scene or whatever of him younger.
Speaking of de-aging, I love how you're triggering these little things in my head. I saw a blurb about The Five Bloods. Did you watch this movie yet?
I
The
have not
Spike Lee
yet.
film on Netflix. I haven't seen it either. But Spike Lee, Oscar-winning director, writer, won the Oscar for writing,
Mm-hmm.
and he's got an amazing body of work. And Netflix, when they brought Scorsese in and brought in everybody to do The Irishman, it was $150 million film. They did all the de-aging. They did the
Yeah.
de-aging backwards and made them work twice as hard because the actors didn't want to have dots on their faces.
Yeah.
And so they had to come up with all this weird CGI, and even some of the effect didn't look so good on some, and some of it looked good in certain scenes. But Netflix, was really holding back on Spike Lee with his movie. Like they really frowned upon de-aging for him. And he was like, but his movie takes place over generations, and they had to de-age some of the actors, but they weren't really letting him have the budget of like The Irishman. And then he wanted to shoot the archive footage of Vietnam and stuff of those guys on 16 millimeters. So when he blended it with the stuff shot on Alexa or whatever they were shooting on, it would look like a
Feel different.
old serial. It would look like an old serial. They fought him on it.
Yeah, I don't
And
get that.
And for me, I'm just like, dude, it's Spike Lee. Like you're going to give Scorsese everything for a movie that wasn't really that good.
No. Yeah.
$115 million. I think I said 150 earlier. It was 115 million that Netflix dropped on that movie. And it wasn't really that good. And then I haven't seen The Five Bloods. I want to see it. I'm going to sit down and try to watch it. Because I liked his last one, the Klansman one, Black Klansman. That movie was awesome. I don't know if you got a chance to see that, but I just feel like again, it's like, what's with the slap in the face there? Like why couldn't he have shot? And I think he finally did get to shoot those scenes on 16 millimeter, but they fought him on it. And I'm like, dude, you can't, it doesn't make, I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense to me, but it became kind of a deal the other day on social media, and it struck a nerve with me just as somebody who works in the film industry, that like, it made no sense that you give the a la carte to one guy, but you don't give Spike Lee what he needs.
Well, I mean, I agree that's kind of jacked up, but to play devil's advocate a little bit, I feel like Netflix might have a certain budget for their normal stuff, and then they have some high profile things like, having Michael Bay do a movie or whatever, where those are moved into a higher tier. So like they're trying to attract Hollywood directors to come consider
What, is
them.
Spike Lee's not in a higher tier?
I'm not saying he's not. I'm saying like
Oh,
you're trying to bring in a lot of people, and they might have a certain set of movies, because there's lots of directors that come in and do, smaller or mid-range budget films, and then
sure.
they have a few tent poles where they're trying to bring in like iconic directors. And again, not saying Spike Lee isn't an iconic, but for that kind of movie, and they should have maybe made him one of the big features that they were chasing. I mean, I think again,
Well,
with
maybe
Scorsese,
maybe they learned their lesson with Scorsese.
well, I'm sure all this stuff was being done around, close to the same time. But I'm with you. Like, Scorsese kind of has this problem everywhere. He had a show on HBO that was set in like the 80s and was all about the music industry.
Yeah.
And they had a changing of the guard at HBO. And that was the first show they nixed. And they said because it was so expensive. I think it was like $100 million
A season?
for 10 episodes. So he was making...
What?
Yeah, and it was like a period. It might have even been more than that. And they were like, it's just
I remember the show. I never watched it, but neither
it's
did
like
anyone
vinyl
else.
or something like that.
Vinyl, yeah.
Yeah, and it like, but they said it was just too expensive to do, and that's sort of his thing. It's like, I feel like Scorsese won't, and he has adapted because he was one of the first people to embrace 3D with Hugo and all that shit when it came out. So it's like he does know technology, but he's like, I guess, just using his status to like make movies the way he used to make them. And it's like he's not changing for the world around him in a weird way, So it's like he wants to still operate on these stupid budgets and get these guys. And again, I'm with you. Like the Irishman was not a good movie, and it definitely shouldn't have been as long. And the fact they jumped through all those hoops because those guys didn't want to wear dots on their face, like Netflix only has themselves to blame if that movie underperformed. But again, it's like Scorsese, so it's like if he's coming in to do a movie, like, whatever, just give him whatever he wants, because
yeah. But I mean, but see, that always hurts everyone else, just like it hurts Spike Lee in some respects, that like he can't get what he needs, but the other guys get what they need. So I don't know. I thought it was interesting.
Well, it might have been, like I said, they've got 5 big movies with, budgets that are above 100 million that they have budgeted for the year. And they have a bunch of movies budgeted for this amount. And if he might have came in and pitched him, I can make this movie for 45 or whatever, because I think they said that he did it for 40 million or something like that. He might have said I could do it for 40 or around that. And then when he's like, well, I need to do this, it's a little more expensive. They're like, oh, we kind of had it budgeted, because they're throwing so much content out. Like, so their budgets
and buying content.
Yeah. They're buying, with like Community going there and stuff like that. So it's like, I don't think it's some like insidious plot against him. I think it's a bad optic, like I feel like they might have just had a handful of films that were big budget films, and they kind of it was like a budgeting thing. Yeah. Now, maybe they could make sure when they do their big budget movies, they bring in people like Spike Lee to give him a truly decent budget, bigger budget movie. And they might, because of all this. I mean, the good thing is all that might actually get him to be, give him a $150 million budget. So.
And you saw that Netflix also, they picked up Cobra Kai.
Yeah, I'm excited for that.
Well, and here's the deal. I only watched the 2 free episodes that they gave away on YouTube Red.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't subscribe. I wasn't interested. They didn't have enough stuff for me to pay to watch it. So I only watched the first 2 episodes. I don't even know if at some point they gave away more episodes, but I'm only too deep in it. And now that it's going to be on Netflix, I think I'll commit and watch. The only thing I worry about is, does the show itself hurt the legacy of the original films?
No. Well, it's funny. Like, first of all, I love it. I thought it was like a great show. And it's kind of weird that it got made in today's, politically correct, because the Johnny character is definitely not politically correct, that's sort of what's kind of fun and refreshing about it, because he's sort of like this guy from the 80s that refuses to adapt to the new world or whatever, and there's like something to being like fuck off, essentially, is what his character really is. But what's interesting about it is it sort of makes Daniel look like the dick in this, where it shows you Johnny's side of everything, like the way he looks at it. And really, when he explains it, like when he talks about what the events that happened in the Karate Kid, Daniel really is kind of the dick, like, because he just kind of shows up out of nowhere, like, because even like when you see it on the beach, they talk about the thing. He's like, I'm just having a argument with my girlfriend, and this rando comes up and starts like pushing me and stuff like that, So it's like, it's funny when you look at how he breaks it down. Daniel does come off kind of like the dick who is just inserting himself in all these situations. And what was he was like, I was just trying to go to the bathroom at the Halloween dance, and this guy pours water on me, So it's like, really, it's funny because it's taking it where you sympathize with him, because it's really from Johnny's point of view how his life really went down because of that moment. And how Daniel's like now owns all these owns a car dealership, and he's like a big shot now, and so
he's on billboards and all that stuff.
It's completely fun, and it's probably one of the best things I've seen where you're bringing in a new audience and giving an old audience what they want, and they do it really well.
Then what other shows could they do that with?
I mean, now this to me, and like this is what was so dumb with Google, was they've been trying to like get something going, and they have a huge hit. I think it was like one of the most watched videos on YouTube or something like that they've done, and everyone loved it. And then they sell it. They're like, right after the second season, when it was a huge hit, they're like, yeah, we're getting out of this business. It's like, thankfully they at least gave it a shot.
Is that because they were becoming some sort of a studio, they would have been regulated differently than what they were as a company?
Maybe. I mean, Google's got its hands in so much stuff that, but this is sort of like how Google does it. They'll create a product or something, and then they'll get like they'll doubt themselves, and the minute it doesn't perform the way they want it to, they nix it. And that's like, they do it with all their products. Like, that's why there's like 3 or 4 different messengers from Google right now, because they don't know how to like have a unified vision like Apple does. So I'm glad it went to Netflix, because then they'll get the care and the attention, because it's sort of like, I think it's amazing it did as well as it did when it was locked behind a paywall on YouTube, as a premium thing. And I feel like if it was just on Netflix from Go, it would have been even bigger. So it's going to be cool.
How many seasons can they milk of that Karate Kid shit?
Well, because it's like, you really got to watch it, because it really, what it is Johnny ends up like, he ends up starting a dojo again, because it's sort of like a kid in the same situation as Daniel is coming, like wanting karate lessons.
Well, I saw the first 2 episodes.
Right.
Yeah. So I kind of got the gist. Yeah.
So you're setting up with that. Well, so Daniel responds by opening Miyagi-Do back up, because he thinks that, so now it's sort of
the villains are back. So we've got yeah,
because he sees it as like, I will not let Cobra Kai establish itself here, and so, and it's funny. I mean, and Daniel does come off like a dick, and he's got a daughter in it, and the kid that the guy's training and his daughter kind of have a thing where they kind of like each other.
So then it's the kids, it's a new generation of it and all that stuff.
But it's good, because they even have
setting
scenes,
it up to be that.
Well, because there's moments where you might see where it seems like Johnny and Daniel might kind of work it out and be cool with each other, and then something stupid happens and they fucking hate each other again. So it's like, it's really fun, and you could see how it goes. And then, at the, not to spoil too much, but the instructor of Cobra Kai, the jerk that that's who they really make out to be the villain, that like he really abused those kids and really led them down the wrong path. Well, he shows up in the end of the first season, and then is the main thing in the second season, and that's sort of what really spurs Daniel to be like, oh hell no, like I'm definitely creating my own dojo. And then their students start fighting in school, and they have some pretty cool stuff. So it's actually a really fun show.
Well, I'll get into it. I'm looking forward to get into it. I didn't want to end the episode without talking about the Mandalorian, the final episode of the gallery that did the behind the scenes stuff. Oscar Isaac was another thing, and then we wanted to talk about Dave Filoni. Oscar Isaac, I'll start with that. He said several times now to different outlets that he's done with Star Wars. One, he candidly joked and said, I'll only go back if I need a new house.
Right.
And that's hysterical. And is that just because of how his character was handled in the last two films, you think? Or do
I
you
mean,
think they make their money on these big things? But you remember, like Harrison Ford even said it for decades. He hated Han Solo. He'd never return. Then he
right.
wind up coming back for The Force Awakens. Then they tricked him into coming back again, JJ, to do that one
Yeah.
scene in The Rise of Skywalker. So never say never when it comes to Star Wars, but Oscar Isaac obviously is not happy. And again, it's this trickling out of whether it be John Boyega or, Daisy Ridley. They start to say how they weren't handled right, going back
Right.
to The Last Jedi. I'll always hate that film. But anyway, what is your take on that?
Well, I mean, I don't blame him, because I can only imagine when you came on and did the first movie, there was all this excitement, and JJ seemed really all about honoring the fans, kind of like what you see with Dave Filoni and
John Favreau with The Mandalorian.
with The Mandalorian. So, and you had a really good setup, and I think that's where, I mean, I know people hate it because it's like, a reboot sort of the A New Hope or whatever, but it was, for me, like, I didn't mind the first movie. I thought, like, this is kind of, I'm excited to see where this goes. I think with Oscar Isaac, I mean, it definitely, I wouldn't doubt, like, he felt like his character was, kind of handled crazy, because it's like, especially what they did to him in the second movie, they really made him kind of out to be this jerk who doesn't listen to authority, and is just against the like Leia for some weird reason, like how he wasn't clued in on anything. I mean, again, we can go on and on about that, but
I'll never get
understand.
over that one shot in the movie where he goes to talk to Haldo by the glass map,
Yeah,
and two other women surround him, one on this side, one on this side. So it's a shot of him completely surrounded by women and him getting beat down like a puppy, and he leaves. And that was was on purpose. I mean, like I get, again, like it's Rian Johnson sucks. Like you can write strong characters like Ripley in Aliens, or like Sarah Connor in the original Terminator films. You didn't need to spoon feed the information to the crowd the way they did. That's always been my problem with it. Because I love Laura Dern, and I thought that character was going to be so awesome. In the previews and everything, is like, oh my God, Laura Dern's in this. Yeah. And then the character was just
Yeah, I mean, it should have been Leia in did
the Haldo maneuver. Yeah.
Well, because again,
totally.
like, you're gonna kill off a character we just met that don't really know. So why, like, as far as stakes go, why do I care? Other than she had a nice conversation with someone in it for a minute. Like,
right.
I don't care. Leia, you would have felt that. Like, if Leia sacrificed,
dude, if
which
she
would have made more
sacrificed
sense.
herself, it would have made way more sense.
And then you would have had people bawling in the audience watching Leia go out, and in a very heroic kind of way, where taking out the main thing. And so, like, that was kind of my thing. It's like, why was this character even here? Like,
made no sense. Anybody could have done the Haldo maneuver.
Right. And so, so I get where, and then also, not to mention, when they did the love, they got a lot of love in the first movie. The second movie was very divided, and then the third movie, everyone pretty much was over it at that point. And so, I think that a lot of the cast is sort of like, I probably won't go back until things look like they're,
Yeah, I mean, I could see
out.
if John Boyega, I could see them doing limited series stuff on Disney Plus, like John Boyega doing his story going forward, and maybe training as a Jedi, because they hinted at that in the original film when he fought Kylo with the lightsaber, and when he was trying to tell, like, he always felt where Rey was at, he had these Jedi feelings, and I could see him coming back, because it looks like the quality of these television shows are better than the films. So,
well, yeah, if it's being done by Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, like, if they're in charge of it, I'm sure they would all come back.
And that goes back to the Mandalorian, the gallery, the final episode. One of the things that I thought was really cool was they literally, and this is the beauty about making all the Star Wars movies that they've done, whether it be Rogue One or whether it be this, that, and the other, they can pilfer through all the costumes and props from all of this. They've got this giant, they must have a giant warehouse as big as a football field with all the stuff they ever need to just, okay, we need to make a little we need a moisture evaporator. Got it. We got a whole line of them. You just paint them a different color because it's a different planet. And like, it was really cool that they, employed the animatronics, the creature.
Yeah.
I mean, hearing everybody at the round table talk about how they did it. And of course, everyone heard the 501st story that came out where they needed 30 extra stormtroopers, and those guys in the 501st are fantastic, and they're so mint with their costumes and so on. And I know a lot of people in the 501st, the different garrisons across the country. And yeah, man, I mean, how cool was that?
That's awesome.
And they paid fan service, but didn't spoon feed it down people's throats.
Well, it was different. I feel like I can definitely see where JJ was sort of copying a little bit, where this definitely felt like it was just geeks throwing in every geeky thing from Star Wars they could, because they knew they would dig it and other people would dig it. Because it was mostly just Easter eggs, where I think instead of copying, they just put Easter eggs. So pretty much everything in there was something from one of the original trilogy movies, or maybe even the prequels. And that's what I guess makes me frustrated with it, because the amount of love and attention that went into the Mandalorian of just random, like they were talking about the things in the back, how they were big on recreating the cantina, like almost to a T.
Yeah.
And then they got Mark Hamill to voice the bartender, which I didn't even know until
I didn't even know that either. I didn't even know that.
That everything they do is for the love of, because they're fans of it and they want to make something cool.
I loved the flip of it, where before it was, and I picked it up as soon as I watched the episode, your droids, they're not allowed here. Yeah, and then all of a sudden there's a droid bartending and there's no more humans serving the drinks. It's like, times have changed.
Right.
And that goes to show you the progression from Star Wars to after 5 years after Jedi, that they got a little more progressive and allowed robots. But those little things, and dude, the ice cream maker from Cloud City. I mean, we all knew that for years, but the fact, and I remember when it first came up and they put it on the thing and he opened it up, I knew right away. I was like, oh my God, that's the ice cream maker from, like, stuff like that was gold. But what I liked about what Jon Favreau said was that it's still, whether you knew the story of the ice cream maker from before or whether you didn't, it still was a cool looking prop that opened up and they had the Mandalorian, melted steel in there and all that stuff. Just great, just all around. I finally, after all these episodes, finally have come around to a little bit of your point of view, because I felt Kathleen Kennedy, one, she just sat there the whole time and just looked at people. And sometimes she looked at people with a deer in headlights kind of look, as they were just like geeking out and talking about all this stuff. And it was like, you could tell she wasn't as self-aware of Star Wars lore that maybe I thought she might have been. And I even said to you in a text, I was like, oh man, Kathleen Kennedy just took up space in this episode. And she commented once, but it was a weird comment about something. And I thought to myself, they could have put another CGI guy in there, or prop builder, or somebody that could have contributed to more. And it just seemed like, but the way they shot those things, I think she was wearing the same outfit from all the other ones because they shot it all at one time. So at that point, she didn't have anything to say. But it really stuck out in that episode that she was kind of clueless as to what they were talking about.
Well, and I think, to me, what frustrates, what I love seeing that, and I love, like, again, and you look at The Mandalorian, almost nobody, I have not heard any negative thing against Mandalorian. Nobody hates that, as far as I can see.
Nobody does. Everyone loves it.
And so, and it's because you had fans of Star Wars who really understood it and were just so excited to throw little, even if they were random things. Like, I had no clue about the ice maker thing. Like, I wasn't in Star Wars. Like, hardcore.
I knew that. Yeah.
So, like, just learning about that, like, what frustrates me about it though is, why was that kind of love and attention not given to the new trilogy? and it's obvious Kathleen Kennedy, because she doesn't know what the fuck she's doing at the end of the day. Like, she can produce movies, whatever, but like to take on Star Wars and do it the way it needed to be done, you needed someone like Favreau and Filoni in there to who are, or it doesn't even have to be them, who have that amount of enthusiasm and nerdiness for the property, because that's what it needed, you know. And JJ had that, you know, but I think, and you kind of felt it a little bit in the Force Awakens, and then Rian Johnson didn't want it to feel like a Star Wars movie at all for whatever dumbass reason. And then JJ, I felt, was just trying to repair everything that he did wrong to tell a story, and it compromised the whole thing, you know? So it's like,
totally.
So I think, like, you know, it's just, that's sort of my point, was why wasn't there a plan of exactly how each film was going to go, where, you know, everyone was
well, and I think again, I think a lot of it had to do with, like, where was Dave Filoni during all of this? He was neck deep in the Clone Wars stuff, right?
Yeah.
He could not devote time. I mean, you know.
Well, I mean, maybe if they'd given him the opportunity, but yeah, I mean, you know, he might not have been.
You think they didn't even look at him as a resource?
Well, I just don't think. I think she let directors have too much control of the property, and I think, and it seems like with Jon Favreau, he kind of knew where he was going to begin and where he was going to end, and I think he wrote most of the episodes, or he might have worked with other writers, but like there was a definite clear vision for that. And then once you know where you're going, then an understanding of where each of these characters is going to grow and where they're going to end up by the end of it, you can then just pack it in with all the nerdy fun stuff that we all love. And it sort of goes to your point where we talked in another podcast, where you're like, there's a difference between a nod and a ripoff. Like, you know, you're talking about
right.
Stranger Things. And I think The Mandalorian doesn't ever feel like it's ripping off. It just feels like there's nods everywhere. And it's like, and it treats the characters with a lot of respect, and the legacy of Star Wars with a lot of respect, where I think they were just so set on creating a new generation of Star Wars, and the fact that they handled the legacy characters so poorly, I think is why I'm just sort of pissed off and confused at how The Mandalorian gets this love and attention from the right people, and how the trilogy, which should have got that love and attention, didn't. And that's just where I'm hoping moving forward that once Kennedy is not renewed and they get her out of there, that they can have someone that, and again, it doesn't have to be a Jon Favreau or Dave Filoni, just someone with that kind of passion.
I'm wondering what happened to Kevin Feige. He was supposed to be interested in producing, and they dropped his name about doing a feature film or something. That's never happened. But I am still hearing rumblings that Rian Johnson's busy working on his 3 scripts for his trilogy, and that when he's finished with Knives Out 2, which I saw Knives Out.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was that great. I think he should stick with that crap. But anyway, I can hold that for another podcast. But Dave Filoni got a little flack because he talked at this women's group.
Yeah.
And
that was an old one too. I think it was
it was an old clip that resurfaced or something.
Right.
Where he said a bunch of stuff that, like, you know, it seemed like he was pandering to the audience, but at the same time, like, people were like saying he betrayed us. He, you know, all the people, you know. And so, what are your thoughts on this? Because you had some good thoughts.
Well, I mean, I think for me, it's like, I didn't see it as him betraying anything. I mean, he was bringing up valid points. Like, the people complaining that a girl is the main character of the new trilogy are stupid. Like,
yeah, I agree.
That is a dumb argument. Like, why? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, again, and I think this is where people get frustrated with the flack. Like, people like me who hate The Last Jedi, you're just deemed as some unprogressive person or whatever. And you're like, no, the story is garbage, and it didn't feel like Star Wars to me. And so, like,
totally.
So that's sort of the thing. Like, people are okay with good storytelling, you know, like, that's what people want. And that's where Dave Filoni gets it. He makes a point, and he's like, how absurd is it we have a female, you know, lead in a movie? Like, oh wow. Or, you know, like, so I agree with everything he was saying. I think it's ridiculous that people are, you know, trying to act like he's a traitor or something because he was.
Yeah, they were saying he was
defending.
joining the SJWs and all that, and it's just like what he said made sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. He'd mentioned something about, all the movies really are about Leia and not about, Luke Skywalker, that Luke and Han were really the vessels that got Leia where she needed to be. And it was
Right.
really Leia's story. I mean, I don't know. That's one point of view, but
I mean, and again too, like I feel like there might be a little bit pandering to the crowd a little bit, like know your audience.
It's a
you're
women's
there.
convention, right?
And again, it's like some people could make the case that it is Leia, So, and again, if anyone knows, it would be Dave Filoni because he sat there with George Lucas and had tons of conversations about this kind of stuff. So,
yeah, and when you look at the flashback sequence in The Rise of Skywalker, where Leia said, "I'll never pick up the lightsaber because she had a vision that someone else would take the lightsaber and do it, and it wouldn't be her, so she put it away." Was it really all about her? I mean, that's kind of how you could look at it in that respect.
I mean,
she was the only one that never gave up the fight, if you think about it.
Yeah, and I don't.
Luke and Han threw in the towels on it. She kept fighting the whole time for a better galaxy.
Well, I think that's poor writing too, because that was kind of out of character. I could see maybe Han reverting back, but it kind of like really sucks as a fan because, you kind of hope they'd have this great love story, by the end of Jedi.
Right.
When you see them all there, you're like, yeah.
That's why they made the music, it's
Right.
like it's their love theme,
Right. And I mean, I think, of course, everyone, and like this is this kind of argument where I'll never understand where they want Star Wars to be more realistic. I'm like, no one believes Star Wars is real. Like, it's a sci-fi fantasy. Like,
right.
So let me have a sci-fi fantasy where everything does go the way we all hope it does, where the guy gets the girl and they live happily ever after, or the guy realizes, becomes a Jedi Knight and actually becomes a good Jedi, to help improve things. But it's like, no, they want it to be like this real shitty, thing. And I'll just never understand that. Like, just
I mean, what kind of a movie would The Princess Bride be if Buttercup and what's his name, Carrie Elways didn't, get together at the end,
right,
and have a happy ending? It's like,
yeah, I mean,
there are certain movies that you want to have a happy end. You want the galaxy to be normal. You want the bad guy to be thrown down the reactor shaft, and you want him to be dead. One of the things that I had seen about The Last Jedi was one of the lines that Palpatine says when he's taunting Rey, he says, in the Return of the Jedi, he says to Luke, "Strike me down with all of your hatred and your journey towards the dark side will be complete." Well, he says to her, "Strike me down and, my spirit will enter you." And well, what kind of motivation is that for her to strike him down?
I know, right?
Like, I'd be like, wait a minute. I like who I am. I don't know if I want to strike you down.
Right.
Because if you're just that's when he started sucking their essence, like essence of Gelfling, because here she is, she's ready to, and so that's
Kill
the
him,
twist on it's like, strike me down and I'll enter you and then take over your body and then you can sit on the throne, but I'll be you.
Right.
Like, then that means she would not exist anymore. Why would she want to strike him down? Like, so again, like some of the writing, even for that movie was, was he trying to pay homage with the whole strike me down, with anger but I don't know. It just didn't,
No, it didn't.
It is what it is. Well, at least we have the Mandalorian. At least they, with Kenobi, they took the scripts that they had and they flushed them down the toilet because it was supposed to be Obi-Wan protecting a young Luke, teenage Luke.
Oof.
It was very similar, but and again, it's like when you look at, we watched A New Hope last night because my wife and I have been watching every Monday a new Star Wars film, for her, just to do as a thing, and in A New Hope, he knew Ben Kenobi,
right?
Because he looks at him, he goes, Ben Kenobi, and then he was like, oh, it's a property of Obi-Wan Kenobi. And he goes through the whole thing, and he's like, so he knew Ben, but to what extent did he know Ben? Did he know Ben like came by once in a caravan and
no.
waved at him? Did he know him like he fought alongside him as a young boy
No.
and then somehow, but they were, and then how in The Last Jedi they did the force healing thing where they pressed on him. And then they're saying like, remember when Luke got beat up by the Sand People and they dumped him there? He walked over and Luke looked like he was dead and he put his hand on his forehead. And then you hear this music and then he turns to R2 and he goes, "Oh, he'll be all right." It's because he force healed his head. He put his hand down there, did the same thing. So they're trying to connect the dots, the tissue. Fuck, man, God. Does it have to, it's too much sometimes.
Yeah.
But even Rogue One did a great job of connecting the dots and they didn't go too crazy with it.
Yeah.
Or like paying homage in Rogue One, but not being something else.
I think it just is a good example of poor leadership who didn't have a clear vision. I mean, at the end of the day, that's really what it is. Like,
I think Rian Johnson thought, if I do good with this one, they'll give me the third one too. And I think he wrote his script knowing or thinking in his mind, they'll let me do this one because they won't know where to go.
Right.
And then when it lost $700 million at the box office, that rug got pulled out from underneath him, which I'm still shocked that they're going to give him a shot. I still think he'll just disappear and they'll never go to him again. Because they lost $700 million on that movie.
Well, and outside of that, I mean, just how divisive he was to the community. I mean, you took a lot of people who just want to go in and enjoy a fun Star Wars movie, and then you just kind of took a dump all over it. So it's like, I mean, again, and I'm not.
Yeah, even like his sign, "Your Snoke's theory sucks," and like, dude, like,
yeah, well,
he was malicious.
The fans.
He trolled the fans. Yeah,
he refused to accept that he made a misstep. And like I think that's sort of the thing. And like whatever, you don't have to apologize for it. And there are a lot of people who liked the movie. I think I think those kind of people are a newer audience that are more very casual Star Wars fans that aren't into it. But
right.
I think it's different if you grew up with Luke Skywalker as a childhood hero. Like it's different than like kids seeing it today. They just don't get that connection like that we all had growing up with it. So for us, it's like this treasured thing. And then it's sort of like that South Park episode where they made fun of Crystal Skull, where Indiana Jones just keeps getting raped like by by Spielberg and Lucas. I mean, it kind of felt like that in a way. It's like you took this treasured thing and then you just raped the shit out of it, essentially, because it was just like, what? Why would you do that to Luke? And then I saw some people like, I like seeing, life. As I got older, I realized life didn't work out the way I thought it would. So I liked seeing that for Luke.
Fuck you.
Well, my thing with that is like,
that's what I say.
Who wants to watch Star Wars to watch a loser? You're watching someone and I think this is a great example of what Dave Filoni said when he was in a few episodes in the gallery back, where he was talking about how George Lucas said, make sure you give kids hope. And I think that's what it was, is as a kid, if anything crazy was going on, you could escape to Star Wars and look at like hope and look at Luke and, Han and all them as inspiration of, hey, and you can escape to somewhere and it makes you feel happy and it's hopeful. And, and when the world's crazy, because in the 80s, you thought Russia was going to nuke us at any minute half the time, the way everything was going. So it's like, it was kind of nice to have a fantasy world to escape to that wasn't real, and then the fact that everyone, and you're seeing it everywhere, everyone's trying to bring reality into all these sci-fi fantasy properties, and it's just like, stop, like you're ruining everything. Just let us have this fun escapism, and that's hopeful.
Give us Ewoks, give us stupid. Yeah, just
not
let
Jar
us
Jar.
dumb down, not Jar Jar. Let us dumb down just a little bit and enjoy something special without having to have all this stuff injected into it.
Yeah,
and pound it over our heads, because we get enough of that every day.
But you get it everywhere. Like, I mean,
everywhere.
It's literally everywhere now. Like, you cannot escape real life because it's in every TV show you watch. It's in every movie that's coming out now. I mean, it's in the news. It's in, any blog you read. Like, I read tech blogs, and it's like they're getting very political on like websites I like for iPhones and stuff. It's like, why are you bringing politics into iPhones?
An iPhone.
And again,
It's
so it's like you're literally eroding the escape, like, for everyone, and I think it's causing people to go kind of nutty because they don't have anywhere to escape from, and maybe that's the point for some people, but I think for art it's a miss. Like, you're just kind of hurting everything at the end of the day because people want to be entertained and they want to feel good. Like, I enjoy movies where I walk out feeling pretty good at the end versus ones where it's like a snuff film where everyone dies and it's like a bleak ending.
Yeah.
You're like, wow, that sucked. That was a shitty 2 hours of my life I just wasted, So
well, and look, they could have gone dark with Rogue One at the end, with Darth Vader hacking everybody up and the whole 9 yards. But then what happens? They hand the plans to Princess Leia. She turns and says, "Hope."
Yeah.
And then the next movie is A New Hope.
Right. So
So yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm with you.
yeah. So yeah, just one more point about the Dave Filoni thing is, like, another thing they said was, during that discussion at the conference that they were referencing, was he was talking about Star Wars was made for kids, and I kind of felt like, I think when George Lucas made the original, at least the first Star Wars movie, he was making a movie he wanted to see, because again, like, he was in his mid-20s or early 20s when he did Star Wars. And so it's like, I find it hard to believe he was making a movie for kids at that age.
No, he was making a movie like for his mentality at that point.
Right.
So we've had these conversations before, like when he did The Phantom Menace, he was a father and he was making movies for his kids at the time because they
Right.
were little kids.
So that's sort of like my point is, like, I think in the original trilogy, he was making a movie that he wanted to see, or movies he wanted to see. And when he thought about kids, he thought about teenagers, young adults. Whereas, and then I think when George Lucas went into the prequels, he was a father. It shifted. He saw how well the toys sold. So clearly there was younger kids. And so he kind of pivoted and geared towards younger kids a little
I think
more.
by the time they got to Return of the Jedi, they had pivoted towards kids because the toys really took off after the movie.
Right.
Because they didn't even have figures made when the movie came out.
Well,
You had to
'cause-
go get
Yeah.
you could buy a card and they would mail you the figures later.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's like, I don't think he didn't realize until that money started rolling in
Right.
that maybe we should focus these a little bit more towards kids.
So, like, when Dave Filoni comes in, it's, during the prequel era. And so, of course, all the conversations he had with George Lucas at that point on were all about how Star Wars is for kids, because really during that era, they really were gearing. I mean,
Dude, the toys were selling like hotcakes.
right. So it's like,
Back then.
so I think that's sort of what he means for kid, because I still never look at the original trilogy as a kid's movie. I mean, it's
No, I don't either. And if you look, and if Dave Filoni had met George Lucas in his 20s,
right.
they wouldn't have had the same conversation
No. And
that they had when they first met.
yeah, exactly. And I think,
I agree with that 100%.
and I think definitely in the 80s, kids were treated a little more, not like with kid gloves. They kind of just expected you to like jump in and learn adult themes almost instantly. They weren't.
Yeah, and I saw a picture the other day on Twitter of taken in the 1980s in Britain of kids. They had stacked mattresses outside their house and were jumping off the roof, and they looked like they were like 8 years old.
Yeah.
And they were like literally jumping off the roof.
Yeah.
And I remember doing stuff when I was 8 years old, jumping off roofs into snow.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, a kid today, with the way the parents are helicopter parents, they would never let a kid jump off the roof of a house at 8 years old into snow. That shit happened in the 80s because that's how it happened in the 80s.
Well, yeah. I mean,
we
I
didn't
remember
have all the stuff we have today.
as a kid jumping off my grandmother's porch, which was a story up because it was a walkout, basement almost in the back. I mean, it didn't
Yeah.
have a basement. But it was like steeper in the back. And I remember, like, I took an umbrella and I was like, oh, I can jump off here and it'll slow me down. Fucking Mary Poppins. Like, that was some bullshit. That shit just inverted and fucking went right down. So, but like, that's the kind of dumb shit you did as a kid. Like, you'd watch
Yeah, totally.
stupid cartoons and like try to recreate it. It's imagine we all lived through the 80s, to be honest. But I think it's like this state we're in now. Everyone's overprotective and nannying, and they feel like they gotta dumb it way down for kids. Where I I think with Star Wars, I think kids could have liked it because their older brothers liked it. You know, it was definitely a teenager movie.
I agree. I think it was because again, like when you look at the heroes, they were all, I think, you know, Harrison Ford was 33 when the original Star Wars was shot. Mark Hamill was in his 20s and Carrie Fisher was 19.
Yeah.
So was it really made for kids?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
No.
I think
When an arm gets sliced off with a lightsaber and there's blood on the
right.
attention to detail, second unit, didn't realize it cauterizes, okay.
Right.
But there was blood everywhere when it pans down to that arm, which
Right.
consequently wasn't the same arm as the hand that touched him because he didn't have a hairy wolf arm. He had a cup like a walrus. Anyway, I diverted, but I see what you're saying. It really, yeah. So when Dave Filoni's like, it's made for kids, he only knew Lucas at the point where Lucas was really just focusing on making these things for kids because it was a cash cow. And he had his kids at the time. Like I said it before, he had his son and his daughter.
Right.
And he made these things for them, and that's fine.
Well, and also I was young. I think I was probably like, 8 or whatever when Return of the Jedi came out. And it definitely probably was catered more because of the Ewoks, because I remember they were everywhere.
Sure.
By the Ewok village and playing with
stuffed animals.
But I mean, I still think kids were playing with Star Wars before the Ewoks. And again, it was treated like more adult themed, or at least they weren't so dumbed down. Because I think that's the thing that annoys me with anything geared towards kids. Like you get a Jar Jar Binks, which is just like, you're just annoying and I get where little kids see it and they're like, ha ha ha, this big goofy dumbass tripping all over the place. But for everyone else, it's the most annoying thing there is, because it's like you're trying to pay attention to the cool Jedis, and then you got this dipshit over here tripping over everything, and you're just like, shut the fuck up and let the Jedis talk, because that's why I'm here. And even as a kid, that's why I was there, for the Jedis and like the cool Star Wars and space stuff. It's like
I think like, I'll tell you what, with my daughter, I'll lift her up and I have a tendency to just go Misa, Wusa, like, and make her laugh with her face. And I start doing Jar Jar and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing Jar Jar.
Because
This is how it begins. I never thought for a million years I would have done that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, we covered a lot today, man. I'm excited. This is episode 8.
That's crazy.
Yeah. We keep on trucking, man. It's good stuff. I was talking to Tom Nesbitt, Doc. He's a film industry crew member, and he worked on Last of the Mohicans, and he's got stories that you wouldn't possibly. I can't wait to get him on the show, and he wants to do the show.
Yay.
I talked to him already. He's got some good stories from all the movies and stuff that he's worked on. And I've talked to several other people in special effects that want to come onto the show. So I'm excited because, they can talk about, I got one friend I got to get on the show who his first job was Freddy's Revenge, a Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy's Revenge. And his first day of work was literally the first day of work. He was a set dresser. No, he worked in special effects, and he had to steam up a shower with a naked girl in it that Freddy Krueger kills.
Right.
And he's just above her with the smoke. First day, naked girl gets killed in the shower. And of course, they can't use real steam because it fogs up the lenses. So they use smoke. So like I have these conversations, and that was my friend Michael, and I want to get him on the show, and he worked on The River Runs Through It. And I mean, the guy's worked on huge films. And he even worked on the Fantastic Four reshoots. And yeah, this guy's done some good stuff. And his resume is ridiculous. But all the guys I know, their resumes are ridiculous. But I'm trying to branch out and get these guys on the show.
That'll be awesome.
Yeah, and so I'm excited about that. I do want to do a shout out to Trent Brinkley, who I've done 2 episodes of his podcast, Taking the Lead, Sports and Entertainment. It's a local one here. And we've had some good conversations in the last 2 episodes that I've done with him. He does this thing once a week. He mostly does sports, but once a week he does this Hollywood thing. And so he brought me on a couple times to shoot the breeze. So taking the lead, Sports and Entertainment with Trent Brinkley, great guy. I really enjoyed doing his podcast. I'll probably go back and do it again. It's great cross promotion. I mean, why not? I got to figure out how to get him on this thing too. But so far his is just an audio podcast. I got to figure out how to get him on camera.
Yeah.
But anyway, man, good stuff. Episode 8. I'm excited. My Father's Day was great. I love my wife and my baby girl.
Right on.
We'll see you on the next one, man. Okay. Thanks for enjoying this episode of The Spotlight with Shaun O'Rourke. Don't forget to go into the description below and follow me on all my social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Yay! We'll see you on the next one.